And as you heard, recording in progress. I will send to you the link to view this playback this afternoon, or whenever Zoom gets around to giving me the information so I can post it on my YouTube channel. So it will be there for playback. Anybody that is registered for this session will also receive the handouts for the slides, the PowerPoints. All right. I want to introduce you today. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise, Derris. Derris Boomer is an IT executive. He owns his own business. He's the founder, CEO of Boomer Technology Group. How'd you come up with that? I don't know. Derris has been all over the world. He has been active globally in so many different really big organizations. It's very exciting to share his knowledge with us. He's going to talk about leadership, perseverance. He has a drive for success, and he's going to share that with you using IT strategies, IT programs that maybe we're a little intimidated by from an HR standpoint or a business owner standpoint. We hear about them, we know about them, but what does that mean for us? Why should we even think about that? So Derris is going to explain some of that stuff that's going to make our lives so much easier. So please help me welcome Derris and give him your undivided attention. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Christine. Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Derris Boomer, and I have a company here in New Jersey based. It is called Boomer Technology Group. And for today's conversation, we're going to have a presentation here. We're going to cover the current answer to the question. Can you put a price on human capital in your organization? And what I mean by that, if you have a company that you're going to be selling an actual product or you're selling services, those things are valuable, right? But ultimately, your highest valuable asset at your company is going to be people, right? Human capital. So we're going to talk about how to go about buying different business software for your company. And it doesn't matter if you're a small business of one person, if you're a medium-sized corporation, if you're a large-scale company, you're all going to have the same issues and concerns about buying software to run your business faster, more efficient. So we're going to cover those things in the different tiers from a small business perspective, from a medium-sized perspective, as well as a large perspective. So without further ado, our agenda is we're going to cover human resources software. You'll hear the term HRIS, which is Human Resources Information Services. We're going to cover payroll software, accounting, and finance software. Lastly, we're going to cover enterprise resource planning software. And what that means in a nutshell is that software that kind of encumbers all these things together. And we'll talk about sales and inventory management software as well. And I'll stop on some of the slides and ask any questions you have out there. If you put any questions in the chat box, we'll answer your questions as we go through each slide and each conversation.
I'll be monitoring that chat box. So if you do have a question as he's going through those slides or, a bullet, please ask the question in chat, and I will be happy to relay that to Derris.
Exactly. Thank you, Christine. So our first slide here, for those that are watching the actual presentation live, I have a picture here of a person with their head against their laptop. And you can imagine if you're a business owner or entrepreneur, you're going to have these days where you're just in a frustration mode and you're having trouble trying to manage your business. And it could be the following reasons. Think about your data within your organization. Perhaps it's a manual effort to track certain things. How do I track payroll cost? How do I track my people's hours for this week? My taxes that are happening in the business? How do I measure performance of my business as a whole, right? So these are the things that can give you a headache day in and day out. And again, buying some software to make your life easier, well, that's the first step of the equation. But beyond getting the software, is it going to be configured properly for your company? Is it going to be able to be utilized by your employees correctly? These are things that are going to be in your mind as you grow your business in the future. So again, how do you manage your company better? Well, we want to, again, alleviate some of your headaches. Again, perhaps you've got a lot of data that's not out there that is not consolidated. Perhaps it's very time consuming to do your processes within a system. You could have bad data that's low quality. You could have things that are hard to work with, or being inefficient. So at any rate, these are some reasons why you may want to go out and buy you a package of software. And think of the following. Some of you may be using like Microsoft Office to run your business, right? You've got Excel, you've got PowerPoint, you've got Microsoft Word and other things of that nature. At some point, you get to a certain size in your company, you can't do it anymore in Excel. You need something a little bit better. So some of the benefits to buying software, the current visual on the screen, it says, these are the top benefits of implementing an ERP software. And again, an ERP, that's like an all-encompassing large-scale software package that would encumber all those different areas of in your business, like finance, recruiting, HR, payroll, all those things could be in an ERP software package. And the benefits are the following. Security, right? You could have some issues with compliance and things of that nature. You're going to hire people who are full-timers, who are part-timers. They need to be paid a certain wage, right? Depending on where they're actually located at per state. If they're a minor, there's a compliance issue with tracking minors' hours within your organization. Think about productivity. As you run your business day in and day out, are you maximizing your people? Are they maximizing their time and efforts in your four walls of your business? Streamlining your company's business processes. Are they efficient? Like, what's my hiring process? What's my process to terminate somebody? What is my process to procure more goods and services from another third-party company as a vendor? What's my process in regards to buying more merchandise? What's my process to track my inventory and do an audit? These are things you want to be able to encumber through some software, and some of it can be automated, some cannot, right? But again, how can you go about that in some software? Integration of data. Again, you could have all these things housed in one system. They could be 4 or 5 systems. Do they all communicate together? Think about your competition. If you're doing a certain business out in the marketplace, what's being utilized by your competitors? How can you be better if you get the same thing that they're using for software? Think about in the current case of COVID-19, mobility and flexibility. If you've got your people at your company working from home today, are they using tablets or computers or laptops or their cell phones, right, to run your business? Is that mobile and flexible for your business's long-term strategy for growth? The last thing, collaboration. How do you collaborate with information within your company? Do we have documents on a share file in some cloud folder? Is it some documents on a SharePoint server? Is it, where do you store your documentation at for your business? Lastly, customer service. How do you engage your customers? Are you tracking these conversations, right? If a customer has something to say to you via Twitter or via some other platform to communicate with you, do you have an actual company website? These are things that could be encumbered through software. And then lastly, forecasting and reporting. How do you forecast the next 12 months of your business? Is it through an Excel spreadsheet? Is it through some software? How do you track these things long term? So again, these are some benefits to buying some software to, again, run your business correctly, I would say more efficiently and in a faster manner. So there are 5 categories today I want to kind of cover. At a high level, we can deep dive to a degree. And the 5 categories that we'll cover today will be human resources software, accounting and finance software, payroll software, sales and inventory software, and then lastly, an enterprise resource planning software. And for those of you who are on the phone who can't see my screen, I'll define each of these 5 different types of software packages. An HR software is going to allow you to literally process different HR tasks, right? Things such as your hiring process, how to promote someone, how to move someone to a different department and or location, how to terminate somebody, how to provide them benefits, right? If they've got accruals of vacation time, if they're going to have a benefit of medical care or vision or dental care. Maybe retirement planning. How do you track that? So usually a human resources software package, you can utilize that software to track your people from beginning to end.
So are you saying, Derris, that if you use this software, there's it's almost an AI type situation where you can get rid of or put hours or tasks to an actual person to do something else because you have that software to do the tasks that they used to do?
Yes and no. So I'll say that you can have an automated process, and there is some AI things happening in the background for some of these software packages, but just on the basis of, hey, I can go into a form, let's say in my HR software, and hire someone, and then send that person an email and say, please complete the following information, right? Please complete your I-9 form, your W-4 form, right? Like there's not an AI doing that. I'm having an actual transaction, right? I sit as an HR person, I'm hiring Derris. He got sent an email. He's going to log onto our website and fill out some information for us. He'll upload his license or his passport ID and so forth, right? But that makes my life easier for two reasons. It's a process that's semi-automated. I can actually track the progress of that, right? Oh, Derris, you did not upload your I-9 form last week. I can get a notification about that, right? So an HR software in general is going to help you track all these things in one place. And as you get more and more complicated in your organization, you could add on some AI processes in that. And I'll give you an example. If you look at a large scale company such as Amazon, right? They're in like 95 countries across the globe. They have employees, and they also have vendors, and they have contractors. Well, their HR software has to be able to track all those things, right? We just hired Derris in America. We hired John in Korea. We hired Kathy in Canada. So their HR package is on a global scale, and it's more of a complex process versus, Derris having one company with 5 employees in New Jersey, as an example.
Okay.
The next software package I'm going to refer to is the accounting and finance software. For those of you guys who are on the phone not seeing this, you'll want to buy an accounting software package to literally, again, track and monitor your accounting and financial needs, right? So if we're having payroll conversations in your company, how payroll being processed, how do we pay our vendors? How do we, if vendors pay us, right? You want to track all those accounting things, and then for your accountant, be able to spit that information out to your accountant to run your taxes every year for your business. On the flip side of that, if you're looking for a bank loan, they're going to ask you for your company's financials records for the last 2 or 3 years. So if you're going to be tracking this in an Excel spreadsheet, that might take you, a lot of hours of aggravation to track all this stuff in Excel spreadsheets, versus if you were to purchase a accounting software package or a financial package, you could do all these things a lot quicker and faster and spit out those invoices out to your vendors and or your reporting for your accountant, right? Or for that bank loan. The next category we have here is payroll software, right? Again, if I'm going to have employees or contractors, I want to be able to track what they're doing, right? Derris put in 35 hours last week. Jane put in overtime last week. I approved the overtime. Bob did overtime last week. It was not approved, right? All those things you want to encumber in your business. Well, a payroll software can help you do those things a lot easier and much more efficiently. The next 2 things here, sales and inventory. Again, back to your company's core processes. Is your company selling services, or are you selling products, right? So if I'm selling products, I'd have an inventory, and I've got to be able to track that. Every time I receive a new piece of inventory, I want to sell that through some medium, right? Whether it's a direct sale to a client or an individual, is it going through a third party? Am I wholesaling my products to another company? You want to be able to track those sales and inventory. On the flip side, if you're selling services, right? How do I track the services of selling, for example, insurance? Bob sold 18 policies last week. How are we tracking his sales process? How are we tracking how much money we owe Bob, right? So your sales and inventory will affect you in both capacities, for products and for services. The last category here that I have, for those who can't see the screen, is enterprise resource planning software. So this is a high-level software. We call it enterprise level, but it's really going to encumber like your entire organization. It kind of connects the dots to the first 4 things I spoke about earlier. And the beauty of that software is that it gives you like that top level view of everything. If you want to track sales and payroll, whether it's in the actual software package or not, you could integrate data between that system and other systems, right? So if I've got a payroll package called XYZ, I could have an input of data coming from that system from payroll into my ERP software. Or it could be vice versa. I could have some data points in my ERP software that I send down to my payroll software, right? And that's on a higher level, depending on your company's complexities and what you require for software in a nutshell.
I think that is the biggest complaint that I do hear from business owners and HR is that their softwares don't talk to each other. And it's very difficult to get, I love this software platform, but it doesn't talk to payroll. It doesn't talk to inventory, it doesn't talk to LMS, it doesn't talk to, and so even though I love it, I want to be more efficient. I want to get everyone on the same page. So I know that is a struggle that a lot
And
of
it is,
people
and
are
especially
feeling.
if you're a small or medium-sized company, perhaps you bought some software 10 years ago, and maybe that software just doesn't have that complexity to be able to input and output data from other systems, right? So now you've got to decide, am I going to leave this package and go somewhere else that's more intuitive to today's requirements for business? Or do I stay the course and just do more manual efforts to kind of reconcile what's happening between systems?
Okay.
So I'm going to go into detail to each of the different types of software we discussed earlier in those 5 categories. And then at the end, we'll kind of recap, but ultimately I'm going to go through each one of these. So let's talk about HR software. If you're going back to, well, why would I want to buy HR software, Derris? Well, here goes a few things we call a use case. A use case is saying, how would I actually use this software in a case-by-case basis, right? There's a transaction happening within this software, and it should be a value point to my business. So here goes a few of the things you can think about. Let's say you wanted to have people go to your website and upload their resume and have it in your database in the future. So you want to receive resumes. So that would be one great point to be able to pull in resumes at will and review them through some software package. Another use case, hiring process. How do I go about hiring people? You know, all the paperwork that has to be done just to actually work in my company on day one. Once you're in the company, it's a process. How do I onboard you? What should you have to be done in your first week at the job, your first 60 days at the job, your first 3 months at the job? How do we onboard you in general? So you could use that in an HR software to say, hey, this is the first week, we're going to give you your laptop. We're going to give you access to this telephone number. We're going to give you all these different things, a checklist when I hire you to onboarding process. Once you're in the company, let's say I want to give you a promotion 3 years from now. Well, how do I promote Derris? Oh, well, Derris came in as job code 05. He's now going to be job code 06, which is a higher level, senior level. Okay, well, when we make this job change for Derris, he's going to get an increase in pay. He's also going to do this, he's going to do that. So again, how do you promote people and track that in a very concise manner? It's a transaction within your software. Think about this, training. Well, how do I train Derris, right? Does the software have an LMS, which is a learning management system connection somewhere? Does it have its own internal LMS package to help Derris be trained properly? Think about Derris as an employee working day in and day out for the entire year. Is he coming in late every day? Is he coming in early? Is he getting overtime when he shouldn't be getting overtime? How do we track his attendance, right? So there could be a use case of saying, I'm going to be able to track people coming in and out of the building because of a security perspective. Who was here last night at 11 p.m.? Think on the flip side of that, if you were the employee tracking my vacation time. Oh, you guys told me for your company's contract and manual, oh, I'll get 2 weeks vacation every 60 days that I work, right? As an example. How do you track vacation time? Think about performance reviews. If I want to say, hey, every year we're going to give you a performance review and give you a raise or not give you a raise, right? And how do we track that legally speaking in New Jersey versus New York City versus California versus Florida? They're all going to have different requirements by state on how you do performance reviews for people and how you track their pay and their benefits. Then lastly, this is very important for every company. How do you just track your companies as a trend happening? Oh, we're seeing a trend on HR of people being absent on Thursdays. Oh, we're seeing a trend in HR where whenever we hire people from this area, they don't turn out to be very good employees. They terminate earlier, right? There could be trend analysis happening within your HR software package that helps you run your business better, right? We can see a trend of, oh, we're seeing a lot of overtime in this plant in New Jersey versus the plant we have in Philadelphia, right? You can always see things through software analytics. So these are reasons why you'd want to buy an HR package in general. And I can tell you for myself, I have a company that I use online. It's a cloud-based company where I can hire employees. They'll get an email saying, do something, upload your documents online. I can say to contractors, same exact process. You've been hired as a contractor. Here's your hourly rate. Please upload your documentation, and I can track their hours online very easily through an app on my phone, as an example. Any questions from anyone so far in the chat box? No questions? Okay.
No
we'll move on.
questions so far. You have given us a ton of information already to think about. So I'm already feeling a little overwhelmed. Like I want to go out and do it, but you're not even done with your slides.
I hear you. Okay. So the next category here, I think a lot of small businesses, they tend to kind of purchase this software package first. That would be how you track your accounting and finance. And some common things you would want to do about this are the following. How do you track your banking transactions, right? So for myself, I'm a small business. And in my case, I can name drop, I use QuickBooks Online. And QuickBooks has so many different modules of functionalities that I can purchase, like a mini company software package, if you will, for every category. I can do sales, I can track my accounting, I can track my human resources information. So going back to accounting and finance, how do you track your banking transactions, right? I've got a checkbook for my corporate account. I may be debiting out data as far as saying, money going out to pay people for payroll. I may send an invoice out to a vendor for payment for something. So how do you track that today in an Excel spreadsheet? Is that for you being very effective, or is it not being effective? Think about your business income and expenses, right? Going back to your accountant. Every year you're going to get a call from your accountant saying, give me all your receipts, right? Give me all your data about what happened as a transaction in your business. Well, Excel can do with the job, but it's very time consuming, right? It takes a lot. It's easy to make a mistake. But if you go to an online or even an offline software package like in QuickBooks, you can track your business income and expenses a lot easier. Think about bookkeeping, right? Are my actual accounting transactions in the right category, right? This is income. This is an expense. This is a write-off expense. This is not a write-off expense. These things you can track in QuickBooks, for example, very easily. How do you invoice your clients or your vendors? Again, back to the talking about inventory and sales and goods and services. How do you track that? Like you want to have some software package to do all those things. And then lastly, think about your cash flow for your business. Like how am I monitoring? How did I do last quarter this year versus second quarter of 2020, right, during COVID? For most companies, that cash flow went down, right? So again, I think it's very easy to see the value point of having some accounting software or finance software for your business and track those things a lot more efficiently. So I'm going to move to the next one. I don't see any questions. Payroll software. So again, in the US, the payroll jurisdictions, they're very different state by state, and in some cases by county, right? And I'll give you a couple of examples. If you have employees who work in San Francisco or LA County, or they're working outside of those jurisdictions, the tax requirements for paying people and monitoring their hours and paying them, it's a lot different in California than it is in New Jersey or New York. If you go to Illinois outside of Chicago, they've got a lot of restrictions on how you pay your employees and certain things. So for example, in California, if I were to be terminated today as an employee, you require in certain parts of California to pay me my last check today. Well, can you do that today in Excel, or have you pay your employees to be able to track and say, okay, we owe Derris some money today because this is his last day. Oh, does he owe us any vacation time that he took already? Or do we owe him some more money on top of his, out the door package for today? So again, going back to payroll software, that can help you track these things by state, by county, by municipalities, in great detail by zip code.
When you use software like this or the previous slides, do you put in the starting points, the ramifications? So if you are getting a payroll system or software, do you say, hey, I'm working in California? Or do you and put in the the requirements for California payroll or San Francisco payroll or Oklahoma or whatever the requirements are? Or how does that work?
So it's two parts to that answer. So as you get in, if you've got a company that has multiple locations, we'll say in this scenario, you're required in this accounting software, your payroll software, to say, hey, I have an office in San Francisco, for example, I have one in Illinois, and I have one in New Jersey. And once you've got that set up, they know in the setup of the software what the requirements are for that jurisdiction by the zip code and where you're saying you're located at office-wise. As you would hire employees, they would have a home office in this scenario, and they should be paid based upon that home office. So if I'm a New Jersey person and I'm working in New Jersey this week, but I also work sometimes in Illinois and let's say in California, you're required to pay me correctly for each of those states. And in some cases, you may have to send me a W-2 for those states, right? Because I worked in those states literally. The flip side of that conversation, again, back to, yes, you're set up properly jurisdiction-wise, saying that that physical office is in that state. We do business in that state. Well, going back to the employee, yes, Derris is based out of New Jersey, but he transferred and worked a few days last year in Illinois, worked a few days in California, right? So you should be able to track me as an individual to where I have worked at throughout the entire year. So when it's time for you to do your accounting and your taxes for that year, again, back to the scenario, you're required to issue me a W-2, right, wherever I worked, where they have state tax or local taxes that I'm required to give me a W-2 form in this example. So again, that payroll software, once it's set up properly, should be able to track all those things and keep your company from getting in trouble with the IRS.
Thank you.
Another use case about payroll software would be that, hey, financial data wise, again, tracking an employee's absences, right? Their benefit payments and deductions by state, if they're different. If you're paying them certain providers, right? Oh, we're paying United Healthcare for some of our employees in New Jersey. We use Aetna in Illinois. We're using somebody else out in California. All those things that are happening payroll wise, you're going to be able to actually have the ability to track those things and set them up properly. And then lastly, think about this. As the government changes course every 4 years for federal, every 3 to 4 years for state, they've got different changes per county. So the regulations about how we pay people and we track these things, they're constantly changing. So that payroll software that you would purchase, they should be giving you an update every quarter to the latest things that have changed within that jurisdiction. So if you're doing this all in Excel today, it's extremely hard to keep up to par to, oh yeah, they made a change in the 5 counties out of 25 counties in Illinois last month. They made 3 changes this month in New Jersey for these 4 counties. It's hard for you to keep up with these things. So again, the win of having the payroll software package is that all those things are built in the software package to maintain your company a lot easier. And you can focus on what's important for your business. You sell services or you sell products, right? That's your core focus, not trying to figure out how to pay my employees in these 3 different states in my example. So that's the win.
Absolutely. And that's the whole reason that we're even thinking about this, because it allows you freer time to focus on what's really important to keep your business going.
Exactly. Do your core competency. You outsource these things by using some software. And in some cases, like for me, example, I have, for my small business, I'm very small, I use QuickBooks. I give access to that to my accountant, to my bookkeeper, so they can see the same software package that's online and they can be in sync to what's happening and do updates at will.
Gotcha.
The next category we're going to get into, it is sales and inventory. So a great ideology about a transaction or a use case within this conversation would be, again, how do I track my goods and services, right? So let's say we're selling products, and we'll go back to our previous example. I've got sales happening in New Jersey, in Illinois, in California. Well, there are different tax things, right? The sales tax in New Jersey is not the same sales tax that's in Illinois and in California. And in New Jersey, we've got these tax rates that changes every once in a while, right? So how are you going to track that from a goods perspective, right? That if I have sales of the same product in 3 different states, how do I track that appropriately so my company can pay the right taxes, right? I sold this good called XYZ to an individual in New Jersey. I got back whatever 6.5% sales tax on that. Well, I've got to make sure for my accountant, we filed the taxes correctly for what we received in sales tax from New Jersey. And the same thing for Illinois in this example, and the same thing for California. So just tracking those sales of goods is a very hard thing. Think about services. If I have employees in the same scenario, I've got salespeople who work in New Jersey, Illinois, and California, and they're on a commission basis. I'm still required to pay them per that tax jurisdiction, right? So let's say we're out on a 4th location. You've got Texas. There's no sales tax. I'm sorry, there's no individual state tax returns for people who work in taxes. So they're not required to file a W-2 to them because they don't pay any taxes in state of taxes. So again, how do you track that stuff? And again, back to the sales and inventory, that all comes into play for your company's financial matters. Think about your costs and your margins, right? If I'm selling the same item in different states, but I have different costs to sell that item in that state. For example, if I have an office on downtown Manhattan, I'm paying more money for rent more than likely versus if I have a small office in New Jersey in the suburbs. So I mean, how do I kind of track my costs in general, right? From that perspective, I have an office, I've got rent, I've got sales in that office. How do we offset our costs with that as a margin?
Do people typically, a business typically have an organization where a person set up all of those standards, the blocks for each of those sections, such as HR and payroll and sales and accounting? Or do they do this on their own typically? What are we looking at?
It depends on what did you purchase for the software. If it already has that inside of it inherently by itself versus you were having to create a list of accounting and accounts and how you're going to do your accounting for your business, right? Are we doing our company as a cash business or are we doing it as another way of accounting? So it depends on what you purchased. What can that software do accounting wise, finance wise? And lastly, how your accountant and or bookkeeper or your CFO wants to set up your accounts within that software package. So if you want to make sure that you're aligned to, most importantly, the best practices for your industry, right? So if I'm selling, cars versus I'm selling soup in Camden as a manufacturer called Campbell's, I'm sure their accounting is a lot different, right? Because they're doing different product lines.
Yes.
So it's going to be a different setup for them.
Okay. Thank you.
And speaking of which, how do you track a unit of measure within your organization for sales and for inventory, right? Like what do we call a unit within our software? If I'm selling a can of soup, is a soup unit, unit of measure for our company? I'm selling a car out of Detroit. How do we measure that as a unit of measure? Every car costs us this much money, and we sell 1,000 cars this month, and et cetera. So those conversations should come into play with you, your accountant, your bookkeeper, your CFO, and how you're going to track these sales and inventory conversations. Lastly, back to this, the value point of having this as a use case. Again, reporting, right? Beyond the tax man and what happens, you're trying to grow your business. So you want to be able to track what's happening, right? We're seeing an increase in sales in the Northeast because, it's summertime and there's a decrease in sales because of whatever reason. Oh, we're seeing a decrease of sales in December because it's snow, right? Like you want to be able to see these trends. And if you don't have a software package to help you see these things, how do you kind of make changes and alter your business to be more efficient, more profitable, right? If we want to increase our sales, if we want to increase our margins, if we want to expand our regions of what we're doing, we want to have some kind of a software package to kind of help us make a better decision going forward.
I like that.
Okay, so no questions. I'm going to move on to the next one here. And the next one here is, the question is, again, ERP, why do I need that? Why would I want that? So first use case, let's think about manufacturing. And this is the basis of where ERP kind of came from. If you're creating some actual product from raw materials all the way up to making that can of soup, right? So if we're thinking about Campbell's Soup in Camden, they're buying raw materials of, vegetables and certain things. If they're buying certain meat, chicken and beef or whatever, how do you track getting that, this beef from this farm in South Dakota all the way to that can of soup is on the actual store's counter, right? Like how do we track that from beginning to end? So in an ERP package, we can literally track those things, right? We purchased these beef in South Dakota. We purchased these vegetables out of Alabama. It got put in our manufacturing plant in North Carolina. That shipped out to some distributors in the Northeast. Then it went down to Shop and Stop, right? We can track all that stuff from beginning to end. So an ERP package can encumber that conversation by three things. It can literally be set up financially speaking to track those units of measure all the way from beginning to end. It can integrate the data by saying, okay, let's import this data from vendors, right? Let's import this data from the manufacturing plant. Let's import this data from our accounting department. let's import this sales data from the sales team, right? It can encumber all these things as a transaction and put it in one-stop shopping for you. Think about your suppliers in the same conversation about Campbell Soup, that they've got suppliers all across the country, if not the entire globe. How are they going to attract the different vendors? Oh, that vendor's in Ethiopia. That vendor's in Chicago. This vendor's in Malaysia, right? They're tracking all these things from top to bottom. Think about activity-wise. How do you want to be able to track that data and report off that properly? Oh, you know what? We had COVID-19 and the manufacturing plants have been slowed down for the last 18 months, right? Or the last 12 months. How would we know that, right? If you don't have any good reporting that takes all that data and makes it valuable for your organization, you wouldn't know any better, right? So an ERP package should be able to give you all those things in a nutshell, but make your life a lot easier.
Okay. You have me sold. I don't.
It's good stuff. Now, here's the part where people always ask me, okay, well, how much is it going to cost me, right? I'm a business person and I'm at a certain level for my business and I want to scale for the next 5 years. Okay, Derris, what is it going to cost me to go forward with these things? So for those of you who can see my screen, I have a visual about how many employees do you have in your organization, followed by low, medium, and high, right? That if I've got more employees, I probably need a much more higher price software package because I have much more complicated things happening in my organization. And I'll give you 2 examples. Let's say going back to the Amazon example, they're in 95 countries, they're in different languages, their packages of software, they've got employees in different jurisdictions across the globe. So them using QuickBooks is probably not going to be their solution for them, right? Like QuickBooks at a certain scale, it's not big enough for anyone to use it anymore because their company's too big. So when Amazon's going to say, you know what, we can't use QuickBooks, Derris, we're going to need something a little bit more robust, maybe an SAP, a people software, a Workday package that's global. They've got different modules by functionality. It has internationalization within the actual software package. So if I got people in different languages in Germany, in Japan, in Korea, wherever, this software can accommodate each individual person by their country. So they'll pay a lot more money for their software, right? Versus Derris is working out of his garage. He's got 2 employees. You know what, Derris? I think you should just go with QuickBooks. That's all you need until you get to a certain size. And there's a big difference between 10 employees versus 10,000 employees, right? It's a big difference between 10,000 employees and 100,000 employees. So my point to you guys on the phone and online is that as your company grows, you're going to require more complex software packages and you'll have to pay more money, right? But the whole goal for you is that I've got to put out money to make money. So that investment you're going to input for this software package in the future, it should pay off in time, right? That you're going to have a return on investment, an ROI that should pay for itself. So if I want to drop 100 grand into software and amortize that for the next 5 to 10 years, I should see that money come back tenfold, right? That's the hope. When I buy the software package I'm going to invest in, it's a capital cost for my business. I'm going to get this back at some point in time, you know, through the value point of efficiency in the business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the next slide I have here, I'm going to name drop some more. So the visual here is some of the top tier players on I would say a global scale across the planet would be a Workday, an SAP, an Oracle. It's a company that used to be called Kronos. It's now called UKG, which is their new name. They had a merger with another company. So those are like the top tier companies where, again, back to my Amazon.com, if they're going to buy some software packages, I know for a fact they have Kronos. I know for a fact they use Workday at their organization. So they'll buy those scales of software packages. If you're more of a mid-grade player, let's say it's Robert Wood Johnson Hospital, they'll use a Kronos, they'll use a Ceridian or N4 as their software packages. They're not as big as Amazon, but they're bigger than Derris Boomer out of his garage. On a slower scale, which is my scale, Derris Boomer, I use QuickBooks. It's a company called Zoho. It's a company called Sage.com. They have software for small businesses. You can scale it up, you know, to a mid-sized business, and the prices can be, you know, pretty economical for you depending on what you require for your business. You can, you know, do it online, or you can buy your own servers and have it in-house whatever is the best value point for your business. I myself, I love having an app that's in the cloud. These companies have been around for a long time, so their security's pretty high, but wherever you go in life, it's going to be an issue of security, so you can't avoid it. So you want to make sure these companies are reputable companies. But I would say from a three-tiered perspective, at the lowest end, again, a Zoho, a QuickBooks, a Sage. At the mid-tier level, Microsoft Dynamics, Ceridian, NetSuite, Infor, and then back to the highest tier of global company scales, a Workday, a UKG.com, SAP.com, and Oracle.com. These are the big players. There are a lot more companies than this, but again, I've got some things for you guys to think about as you go as a best practice.
I love the rating and buying, guys. I think that is extremely helpful because a lot of people love your ideas, like me, but have no place to start. We have no idea. So that gives you a starting point, a jumping board to figure out and do that comparison shopping, which is a really good thing. And it's very important because you're investing in your business for that long-term result.
Exactly. And at the bottom of this slide, for those who can't see it, if you're looking for a buying guide or ratings, Inc. Magazine, I love Inc. Magazine. I subscribed to it for the last like 7 years.
Yes.
They have a buying guide for software in general every year that they'll publish. But if you go onto their website, I have a link on this deck. It's a buying guide about accounting software. There's a company called Gartner that does ratings for all types of things in business. So this is their link to their rating different kind of cloud ERP packages that are out there in the marketplace. Excuse me. So those are two companies I think are great for their ratings, that, you know, independent companies that will tell you the good and the bad that's out there in the field.
Yes, yes.
Best practices. So for those on the phone who can't see this, I'm gonna go through each bullet point. So best practices as you guys go forward to purchase some software in the future out of those 5 categories. I would tell this to my neighbor, I tell it to any of my colleagues. If I'm looking for software, this is what I do. And I'm an IT guy, so I think these are the facts. Number one, go out there and look at the reviews and get some quotes. So any company that's going to sell you software, you know, you want to see a demo of the software. Most times, all these companies that I mentioned earlier, they have demos already on YouTube. So you don't have to necessarily call a salesperson and sit down for the 2-hour pitch. You can just go onto YouTube and do a search and say, I'm looking for HR software. I'm looking for payroll software. And I'm pretty positive all those companies have a demo online that they did for them, for their clientele. On the flip side, you'll have clients who either they love it or they hate it. If they loved it, a lot of clients will go out there and post their own videos of the software. So you don't have to pay any money to hear a pitch or spend an hour on the phone with a salesperson if you don't want to. You could literally go out there onto YouTube or other social media platforms and watch these videos of the software package being actually utilized, right? In some cases, they have an app in the App Store for Android. They have an app in the Apple iOS store. And a lot of times there are apps that you can download for free. They have a demo version in the app itself. So that's free. If the software is for free, I can just do a download of the software, click on demo, and I can play with the software live. So for example, Kronos.com, which is now UKG.com, they have a software package where you can clock in as an employee, you can transfer your hours, you can look at your payroll, all those things. They have an app, and in their app, there's an actual demo mode in the app itself. So again, you don't have to go and call a salesperson until you're ready, if that's my whole point. But definitely get you a quote once you are ready to get a demo from them directly, give them the breakdown of your company, your size, your scale, your 5-year plan of attack. I want to grow in the next 5 years to 1,000 employees, for example. I'm going to need this, that, and the other. They'll come back and give you, you know, an actual quote, and you can take it or leave it, right? But I would say get 3 quotes at the minimum. The next value point here for best practice: buy some software that caters to your industry and your business. So, for example, if I'm a retailer, I don't want to buy a software package that really is focused on, you know, selling cars. I want something that's based on retail that I do. Am I a luxury retail? Am I a low-end retailer? Am I a grocery store? Whatever the case, buy the software that best suits your business and your business growth for the next 5 to 10 years. The next one, you want to employ and be able to train people how to use your software. So you should have an administrator that administers that software at your company to support that software. So if you're a big company with the help desk, they need to be able to understand how that software is being used in your company and what can go wrong. How do you break stuff in the software, and how they're going to fix it, right? So have a really good trained staff. For most of these vendors, they'll have classes online for training. You could have someone come in the house and do training to your staff, but most times their trainings are online a lot of times nowadays, especially through COVID. And again, they've got training videos on YouTube a lot of times for free, and you'd be shocked. There's so much content out there on YouTube. It'll blow your mind for some of these software packages that are out there. The next thing I have is a bullet point. Find a software vendor that's more established and has got a solid guarantee of warranty and support contracts. So again, back to a Zoho or a QuickBooks, these companies have been around for a while. They're pretty big in size. They're global companies in some capacities. I trust them. They've got ratings out there from other clients and clientele. So, find somebody who's established. I wouldn't go buy software from some kid out of his garage from Silicon Valley who just started, because I don't want to be like the guinea pig of his software, her software package. So I'm more into established companies if you can. The next thing, this is a big point for me. Don't just go out there and buy something that has the best bells and whistles. And the reason being that you want some software that's going to help you run your business more efficiently. You don't need the latest and greatest thing that's going to cost you a lot of money. You just want something that's going to work. It's been established. It's been in the marketplace for a while. It has minimum issues with it. It's like, think about buying a car. Am I going to go and buy this high luxury European sports car? Or am I going to buy a nice, reliable Honda or a Toyota or a Chevy, right? Like, find something that's really, it does the job. It doesn't got to be super, super cool. It's just got to do the job, right? At a certain cost point. Next bullet point here, security. Make sure you're understanding that software vendor security model. What are they doing to make sure that they're secure? You're not going to get yourself caught out there. Now, again, security is an issue for everyone across the globe, right? Every app that's in the app stores, they all have security concerns, but you want to find somebody who's transparent about what's been happening with their company for the last 4 or 5 years or a decade, and how fast that they are to resolve security issues in their support model for service. Next thing, data archiving. For most times through your accountant or your CFO, they'll want you to be able to archive data for the last 7 or 10 years. So as you buy these software packages in the cloud, they're going to charge you a certain amount of money as a license per user, but they'll also charge you for how much data do you have stored on their platform. So make sure you read the fine print about that, oh, we're uploading physical documents a lot to this software package. Oh, we're going to upload pictures of the document. Whatever the case might be, a picture being saved on a cloud server versus an actual document being saved is 2 different things in size. So make sure you're up to par to how much data you're going to have and what's your data projection for the next 5 or 10 years, because that's going to be a cost to your company directly. The last 3 bullet points here. Have written policies and procedures for your company. So again, what's my hire process? What's my termination process? What's my whatever process? Have these things written out in your company, because if you don't have a process in writing, how can you have someone at the vendor side configure your software for you properly?
Will they have those questions established, like the basic 5 questions they ask everyone, just so that they know what direction to point you in if you are inquiring, or
they'll definitely
have no idea what you want?
They'll definitely ask you a bunch of questions doing your configuration. Right? You're going to discover your company and get your requirements of the software. But you as an organization should have an idea of what that is. And hopefully if you're in a certain industry, what you're doing today is not like it's from scratch. Meaning, let's say if I'm selling out of a retail store, we have certain things to hire people, right? The hire process is the same pretty much everywhere, right? For the most part. So you're not starting from scratch. You should have an idea what that hire process is, right? But again, you want to make sure it's in writing, so you don't walk into this trying to discover for the first time how it should work, right? You should know before you buy the software, for the most part, how am I going to hire someone, right? And again, they'll guide you through their software package by industry if need be, but you want to have some ideas before you get there.
Okay.
The last 2 points here. Keep your system as simple as possible, right? Simple flows of how things happen transaction-wise. Don't make it too complex if you don't have to. And then lastly, you get what you pay for, right? So if you're going to go super cheap, don't expect much. If you're going to pay a lot of money, you're hoping it's going to be a value point to the tiers of grading of what you're buying, right? But again, if you're going to go super cheap, you get what you pay for. So if you don't pay for it now, you'll pay for it later.
Do you have to start all from scratch? Say you started at the lowest end. You are that 2-person in the garage, and You didn't need bells and whistles and all that other extra stuff. And all of a sudden you have grown into that 50,000 employee, but you never upgraded. Now you're going to upgrade. Do you have to start from scratch, or does it kind of like bring over what you did and put into the newer system?
So it depends. So I'll make it in two different conversation points. If you've got historical data, let's say you were using like Sage software at your company for like, you had 1,000 employees and you've got actual data for the last 4 or 5 years in different categories. I've got payroll data, I have HR data, I've got sales data, I've got inventory data. If you're going to go to a new package that's not Sage, and say you're going to buy Microsoft's whatever package, your migration of data should be a part of your entire contract, right? I've got some old data that's historical at my company. I can't lose this data. So I'd have two options. Do I want to reduce my licenses and keep it on the old platform and go back to it when I want to see it? Or can I put some data in a PDF document and keep it somewhere in a cloud drive for historical analysis? Or do I truly want to actually bring all that historical data into the new system? So whatever the answer might be, you want to make sure you have access to that data and bring it over, or you can get to it at some point in time, right?
Yeah.
On the second part of that conversation, beyond bringing that data over, you've got a process happening, right? And if your company has grown to 50,000 employees, that process may have to be altered, right? Well, before we were in 10 locations with 1,000 employees, now we're in 85 locations with 50,000 employees. Well, more than likely, each location is going to have more complexities of hiring somebody in this example. So think about that scale and that scope that, me out of my garage hiring somebody is going to probably be really, really easy. But if I'm in 85 locations with a lot of different employees, that process to hire someone is a totally different thing now. So it will be more complex and require, that vendor making sure they understand those complexities. Oh, okay, we're bringing historical data from your old system in this format. Okay, we're going to massage this data to put it into our system. Oh, you need to have someone trained on how to use our software. Okay. Oh, you want to also incorporate your business processes with your training. Okay, that's a whole different thing, right? So whoever you choose as a vendor should already have experience doing this prior to you buying the software package, number one. But number two, they can offer you various things to make that an easier transition. Okay.
Interesting.
That's the presentation. I had one more deck and we've got like 5 minutes left. I'm going to pull it up real quick. Give me 1 second. It's a company that has this great it's just human capital management enterprise. It's like they did a scorecard, if you will, about different software that's out there. I'm going to show it to you real quick. So this company, this is a brand new document from January of this year. They went through different software packages and they literally scored how they rank. So they tell you about how good is ADP, Vantage, how good is Paycom, how good is UKG, which is Kronos, how good is Workday, how good is SAP SuccessFactors, how good is Oracle HCM Cloud. So they just kind of score these companies and tell you how they rank as far as this company is a challenger in the marketplace. This company is a service star. This company is a leader. This one's a product innovator. They break it down to you into great detail. So this is a free document that I got to download from this company that did an independent study of these companies. They give them a score of how they ranked amongst themselves, right? So this is available for you guys to receive from Christine. And I think it's a pretty good document. It tells you each of the players and some stats about those companies in detail.
Wow, that's very interesting. And it looks like a lot of the homework is done.
Yeah,
you hear a lot of these words. You hear a lot of these platforms and vendors, and again, you don't know what's what and where do I start and all that. So that's definitely very helpful.
Great. Yeah. So again, this is available for you guys to receive this and see this in detail. And the company that I got this from, their information is on I think at the very end. So you can go and pull the same document down. But again, we've got a free copy for you guys to get from Christine, and it's valuable. So
thank you. That's very nice. Thank you. Great. Are there any questions? Any? No? I did get a thank you so much. I'm overwhelmed with wonderful information.
Oh, perfect. I mean, I'm Derris Boomer. You guys can reach out to me. I'm based here in New Jersey, so have a laptop. Will travel all over the U.S. and so forth. But if you have any questions outside of this, let me know. value your time today to listen to me for about an hour. So that's been great.
It was very helpful, very beneficial, and especially for those of us that have no idea where we're going or are kind of on the fence of what do I invest in? So where do I go? It's definitely gives us a lot of food for thought. So I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. I think there's, so Lisa says, how can you get the deck in the chat box?
Oh, can we get the deck? Absolutely, Lisa. I will send that to you when I have everything uploaded and the recording is ready to go. So, yes.
Perfect.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you so much, Derris. I do appreciate your time today. And, you know, sharing the information was huge, like more than you know. And hopefully we will connect again soon. And maybe you'll even give us another presentation.
Perfect. Hey, thanks again for your time today, everybody. And Christine, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. You take care now.
Okay, see you guys. You guys have a good day.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.